Hey everybody, Mr. Wallowitz here. In keeping with our coverage of the labor movement, we are going to analyze another strike that is going to grip the nation. While we are going to look into the how and why of this strike, we are also going to see how two different newspapers covered the same event very differently from each other. Here we have the Pullman Strike. Palace Car Company. The Pullman Palace Car Company built sleeper cars for trains when train travel was at its peak in the United States. The Pullman Company was by far the largest maker of sleeper cars, and the company employed thousands of workers in Pullman, Illinois, a town near Chicago that the company owned. The Pullman Company's founder, George Pullman, built the town to ensure a dependable and productive workforce for his company, and he enacted strict behavior standards for the workers who lived there. Pullman also expected to profit from the town, and he charged workers high rents and rates for utilities. Reasons for the strike. A deep economic depression began in 1893, resulting in a wave of company bankruptcies and bank failures. To protect profits, Pullman laid off thousands of workers and reduced the remaining workers' wages by 25% or more. At the same time, Pullman refused to lower rents in the company town, which sparked outrage among struggling workers. Workers began to band together to demand higher wages, better living conditions, and shorter workdays, but Pullman refused to negotiate. On May 11, 1894, Pullman workers walked off the job, initiating a strike at the plant. ARU supports Pullman workers. The American Railroad Union, or ARU, under the leadership of labor organizer Eugene V. Debs, was sympathetic to the workers' cause and called for a nationwide strike in which railroad workers would refuse to handle Pullman cars or move trains that carried them. The ARU strike grew rapidly in June, and the rail travel ground to a halt in much of the country. Trains were the primary means of transporting goods at the time, so the strike meant that food, mail, manufactured goods, and coal were not moving in many places. By the end of June, the strike had become a national crisis. President Grover Cleveland's response. Railroad executives brought in strikebreakers and ordered them to attach mail cars to trains with Pullman cars. They hoped that a refusal to deliver the mail would give the federal government a legal justification to intervene. The ploy worked. President Cleveland's administration, who was unsympathetic to the strikers, convinced a federal judge to order an end to the strike because it interfered with interstate commerce. To enforce the order, Cleveland deployed thousands of federal troops to Chicago. Violence erupts. Strikers were outraged by the deployment of troops, and violence erupted on July 6, with protesters destroying hundreds of rail cars and clashing with troops and police. On July 7, National Guardsmen fired upon the protesters, killing up to 30. However, that number is disputed. End of strike. Federal troops and local police soon gained control of the rail yards, and ARU workers, including Debs, were arrested for violating the court order to end the strike. After their arrest, the strike fell apart quickly, and public support for workers began to wane in the wake of the violence and destruction of the strike. The Pullman Company reopened in August, and Pullman prohibited all workers from joining a union as a condition for their employment. The Pullman strike was a contentious issue across the country. In Chicago, where the strike was centered, newspapers covered the strike differently. Some were sympathetic to the strikers, and others supported Pullman. In our assignment, we're going to look at how two newspapers reported the strike and figured out which side each supported.